Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're a little off cycle with our usual time and day, but it's midsummer, so enjoy your Fridays. So we'll go through our usual logistics and have some updates, but we wanted to spend most of the time today in discussion about the impact series in June. Get your feedback, talk about next steps, actionable steps, and such. So as usual, if you're new to the group, welcome. So glad to have you join us. Introduce yourselves in the chat box. And if you have any particular interest or firsthand experience with embodied carbon on a project, share that too. That'd be great. We record the sessions and they're posted in the BSA's YouTube channel, I think. Caitlin's nodding.
Yes, that's correct.
And then we have two listservs, FYI. The HQ one is the one that usually Julie, myself, or the people who are leading up the working groups use for announcements. And then there's a forum one, which has been inactive, but it exists for chatting. So if you're interested, and if you're interested in sort of moderating that, please volunteer. And then the contact, sorry, that jumped to the bottom accidentally. It's clf.boston@gmail.com if you want to join or if you have questions. That's where sort of the membership email is. And this is for the benefit of the new folks. This is a slide we've been sharing in the impact series, but we do have these working groups that are on the left. And if you're interested in joining, we can connect you with the group lead, or if in conversation or if you've had a thought about a working group or initiative you want to embark, we can talk about that today. We can talk about that later. All efforts welcome, all hands on deck. There's so much going on. And then on the left, here are resources and tools that we just want to bring to the table, remind people and just know that it's out there. So with that, we have a few shares. Caitlin, do you want to jump in?
Sure. Thanks for giving me time. I'll be hopefully brief, but I just wanted to plug two series that I've been working on. First, I'll plug reopenings. I think it's a little bit less relevant maybe to our climate action focus, but it's still super fun. This is being kind of championed by Jeffrey Burchard, who's a board member of the BSA and represents Harvard GSD, and he's coordinated 3 sessions that each pair design principles talking about new architecture in or in addition to existing buildings. And it's really kind of focused on the design process, but it's meant to kind of celebrate that moment just before opening, which he feels is often missed in the architecture world, right? You kind of celebrate getting the project, breaking ground, and when it's awarded, but this is kind of a celebration of having completed a project that's just about to open or reopen its doors. So that's fun if you want to talk design. Probably more relevant to this group is a series of 7 presentation programs that I've curated with the help of Lori, who I think is on this call, among others. And this is kind of meant to foreground existing buildings as climate solutions. So in some ways, kind of building off of the impact series, renovation, preservation conversation. So these presentations will take place every Monday, starting next Monday. And they pair 2 client and designer teams talking about specific existing building projects, the challenges, the triumphs, the lessons learned, and kind of ways to capture potential for existing buildings to be climate solutions. And each one will offer an HSW credit if you're up against a deadline and need some of those. So if you have questions, I'll drop my email in the chat, but thanks for the floor, Rochelle and Julie. And I should say, sorry, one more thing. A number of members of this group will be presenting their work. Okay, thank you.
That's fantastic, and it really seems to dovetail in so many ways with the impact series and the conversations we had there. Thank you. Let's see. I think, yes, Amelia, do you want to talk about project timeline efforts?
Yeah, just a reminder that we're looking for feedback and input. So this is just showing the address of where you can find our draft release on the Google Drive. If you go to the next slide. And this is a typical timeline. This is for pre-design, but we also, in this one PDF, we have drafts for concept phase and for schematic phase. And we're looking for for input on the graphics as well as content. And the next slide. And so in that folder, there's an Excel chart where you can just put in your thoughts. And thank you to the person who did review, and we really appreciate the comments, and we'd love to get more input. That's all from us.
Thank you so much. Steve Burke, are you there? All right, let's jump.
He's there.
Yes, I am. Sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, okay. I wanted to invite you to talk now if you'd like. You were also suggesting jumping towards the end, but so up to you.
Yeah, I put this slide at the end because I wasn't sure where you wanted to place it, but actually I have a question for you. How many people are in the CLF Boston group at this point?
I can jump
That's
in.
a good question. Thank you.
I think there are about 75 folks who are on the list, and then like 25 to 35 of you show up consistently for this.
Okay. So, well, the reason I ask is because thinking about it, that means that there's 75 individuals and probably 50 so firms plus or minus that are in a position to either specify, advocate for, or put in place low carbon concrete solutions. And I think that I'm often hearing from people like, where do we begin and who do we talk to and what's been done so far, what's currently available in the market. And there's definitely some projects that have done this. I mean, I think that we have 6 or 7 that are in Massachusetts that are either doing it or talking about it. And I feel like it would be really well served as a use of our time to see who has done what so far and get kind of just very basic high level information about where the projects are, what they did, and who was on the project team and contacts for ready mix suppliers, whoever, you know, worked on those projects. And with 75 people as part of the group, even if those core 25 had 3 or 4 projects, I think we could create a pretty good map of what's been done to date. And then the people who are trying to push things forward aren't going to have to, you know, start from scratch each time, which I think is a big part of the issue. So I guess this could be collected in a pretty basic spreadsheet format, which I've started, and we could go so far as mapping it out in something like Tableau. So there's what you're seeing is just an interactive map potential. This is an illustration of, you know, how it could look, where you could see where the projects were, and then when you scroll to it, you see what they did. So this is kind of like a wouldn't it be nice type thing, and for me, feel like we should have done this a year ago. But it's just something I wanted to put out there to the group for feedback, and I'm happy to kind of, you know, sit as the center point of receiving that information and working it into mapping. And even if it is just a spreadsheet, I think people would find it immensely helpful. So that's kind of my piece of what I wanted to share today.
Awesome. Not to put you on the spot, but I put a question in the chat. How do we tackle Boston sand and gravel to amp up the SEMs?
I mean, that's a perfect example. So I know that they have pilot projects where they were looking at sourcing glass pozzolan for an SEM,
Okay.
but that doesn't seem to be, that project didn't move forward, and that doesn't seem to be something that they're putting on the table for everyone. And I also know that, you know, our firm and others, and, you know, Mike, I don't know if Mike's on the call, but he's been talking with them as well and kind of actively engaged with trying to figure out what they can do. And they seem like a company where it does depend on who you talk to.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, you know, that could be a great point to how this could work as a good resource, you know, getting the right contact and, you know, potentially mixed design data, but it doesn't even necessarily need to be as complicated as that.
Cool. This is super. Can the Tableau and the Tableau diagram, for people who are really into graphics, this seems really productive. Is it easy to take information in an Excel form and move it over? Is an Excel file the right way to set up something and host it? I think actually during the meeting last week last time we set up just a basic Google spreadsheet in the CLF Hub file, which we could set up as the data collection location. Does it make sense to do that?
Yeah, whatever people think is going to be easiest to collect and share the information. I created some fields in the spreadsheet offline that I can just transfer over to CLF Boston Drive folder if that's where people want to do it, or we could do direct email, you know, whatever we think is going to yield the greatest feedback. I'm fine either way. And to answer the question about Excel to Tableau, that is how Tableau gets populated. So that would be, there shouldn't be any issues with that.
Super. Yeah, I think I would be a fan of using a Google spreadsheet and emailing lots of folks and asking them to pop in and put information. If they prefer to just send you an email with information and you populate it, cool. And you have access to the draft that we set up in April. So have at it to update and let us know if you need any help. This is really cool. Is anybody working on this with you?
Not yet, but I certainly welcome anyone who would like to.
Duly noted.
Put your email down in the chat, Steve, and if anyone wants to email you later, they can do that. Cool, thank you. All right, let's jump to the impact series. First, let's perhaps, round of applause for Lisa and everyone who was involved. It was a really big effort. And so just indulging in a moment of self-congratulations as a group. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. It was fantastic conversations, very informative, and a lot of documentation as we had these series go. So, Julie, I was thinking of flipping through the slides and then landing on the sort of summary one.
That sounds great.
So we do have recordings of the sessions, of the 7 sessions online, and we can share the link later to the BSA's archive of recordings. And we've been collecting notes, saving the presentations, and distributing it to people who attended the sessions, but they are available. And what I'm flipping through, so yeah, June, all the sessions we had in June, plus a few more that weren't directly impact series, but related to embodied carbon. I'm flipping through the sessions we had with the cover page showing the presenters and then a summary of next steps, action items. Just so you know that they're there, we're not gonna like sit on them, but you can come back to them. Interiors, science, tech, healthcare, commercial, multifamily, public projects, residential projects. And so here's sort of a high level overview of the takeaways from these discussions. And I think there were some really great, common threads highlighted in the yellows about what we do, but we'd love to sort of open up discussion, hear, your thoughts and impressions, your input. I'm for myself thinking about next year. We've talked about programming for the deep dive series. That's, just an idea out there and a name for going deeper into problem solving and tools. But I think what we were thinking about when we went into this was what are the questions we have? What are the unknowns? How do we push forward? How do we develop knowledge? And what would be useful to bring to the table next year for next year's educational series?
And on that, the items in italics are the ones that I started to sort of noodle around on that idea for, in terms of a quote integration deep dive series as a follow-up, where the focus could be around the project checklist, case studies, specifications, new materials, defining what good means, comparing tools, identifying and sort of building off of specifications for low-hanging fruit to just get specific on items that can be implemented ASAP, and some ideas around shifting the market, which I think obviously dovetails off of lots of the conversations we had around requiring EPDs, making decisions based on carbon data, reusing existing buildings, etc. So there's a lot here to consider. There's some that's still sort of high level and big picture, but there's some that's also really specific in the types of work that the working groups are doing outside of the education hub or education working group. What Steve just talked about for Ready Mix, what the folks have been working on for the project checklist, what folks have been working on for the case studies. I think there's a lot of collateral there that we could wrap up and celebrate and get out into the industry by virtue of this integration series, in addition to other topics that I'm sure are really key. One of the things that I also noted in the shared language theme was this idea that we talked about in one of the sessions around getting a group of Architecture 2030, MEP 2040, which is a forthcoming initiative, and SE 2050 people together to be able to cross-reference and cross-link those initiatives from one discipline to another, and make sure that everybody's aware of how they work and what the best way to get involved is. And that's already started. So stay tuned for that one, which we're really excited about.
Julie, Rochelle, I just want to add something quickly, and I think it builds on what the work that Steve has started, is that there is definitely an interest in some of these groups to try to figure out how to continue the conversation. Residential was a good case in point. You know, they like so many of you, they had a lot to share, and there were probably in that forum, not opportune times for everyone to engage, to ask questions. So I think that there's the need for some to continue the discussion regularly, right? So to serve as a resource, and I think organizing discussions around project type has merit. So to the extent that maybe Steve's Excel sheet can highlight that, so that people can find people who are working in their space easily, is maybe something that could be really good. I also think that, I don't know if John is on the call. Yes, he is. Okay, so John already took on the challenge of sort of writing up like a short white paper, less than 2 pages. And I do think that having something that we can send out to this year's participants and put on the BSA site is useful. Just again, as people, there are many more people that are just getting started thinking about this. I think this group represents those who are accelerated in their thinking and practice, and we have to remind ourselves that there are many more people that are really just, they know they should be doing something, they don't really understand how to do something. So to the extent that others are willing to, and it would be on the presenters, I guess, to take the time to sort of summarize, that might be useful.
I think you're muted, Julie.
Sorry, thanks. That raises 2 questions for me on the topic of the small scale residential group. Would it make sense for them to form a new working group as part of this community? I think that's the structure that I would suggest, so that we can keep it in the sort of in the family. And yep. And then number 2, the very first idea under resources is the hub landing page. And I'm wondering if that's also a working group that we could get set up within this community. And obviously somebody at BSA and or CLF or both, to talk about what we could do with the resources that are already available on within the CLF website and or within the BSA website, to have a landing page that has more resources. So we've got the links to the discussion series, the educational series so far, and those are awesome resources. We're talking about white papers. We've already got a link to some of the resources that have been compiled right at the beginning of the presentation that Rochelle showed. Those are posted on the BSA webpage, but linked to the impact series specifically. So there's a huge amount of opportunity to take what we already have and put it out there in a slightly more user-friendly way, in addition to adding everything else that's coming up around the ready mix, the project checklist, template specs, tool reviews, et cetera, as a sort of warehouse of resources. So I don't know if anybody would be willing to put their hand up for it today, but I've jotted it down as the other idea for new working groups in addition to the small scale residential folks. Super. Other comments and feedback and thoughts from the series and some of the ideas that are on the screen?
definitely interested in the defining good under resources. Such a great question. And obviously the thresholds question in policy is a big one. It's coming up all over the place. I mean, obviously there's stuff going on in the city of Boston and city of Cambridge, but it comes up in municipalities across the state.
I think you're muted again, Julie.
I'm so sorry. I've got traffic noise and I'm just trying to respect everybody's like tolerance for background noise these days. Michelle, could I put you on the spot and ask you to just give a quick update on the embodied carbon tag with the city of Boston and what's happening there?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Can you hear me okay? I also have a little, okay, great. Yeah, so for those that don't know me, my name is Michelle Lambert, and I'm co-leader of the Policy and Advocacy Working Group. And one of the things that we've been working on, not necessarily just that group, and there's a whole other number of other people involved in that effort, is we've formed a embodied carbon technical advisory group as part of the City of Boston's net zero zoning revision of Article 37, which had been underway for about a year or so. Probably some of you are also involved in that effort. That was really focused on the next step in reducing the operating carbon and trying to get from where we are at Article 37 now to net zero. And a number of us have been advocating for a long time with the BPDA to include embodied carbon. And John Dalzell at the BPDA finally agreed and heard us and let us set up a tag, which has been phenomenal. And we've had 3 tag meetings to date with one additional like big public meeting. And we have between 30 and 40 people show up for the tag meetings every time, which just shows, you know, how important this has really become. And so we're in the process of doing a lot of brainstorming, talking about a lot of specific topics. Yesterday was we had a meeting and talked specifically about how social equity fits into this new regulation and the whole discussion around embodied carbon. And then we also had a very detailed presentation on mass timber. So lots of information gathering, and we're going to, towards the end of this summer, start synthesizing that into recommendations to the city to adopt into their new net zero zoning, which we think is coming sometime in the fall. That seems to be, they have to do some public meetings and get feedback. So it sounds like that will be fallish, maybe into winter. And hopefully there'll be some embodied carbon recommendations in there that may not end up as a prescriptive requirement initially. It may be more like a soft policy that project teams are encouraged and required to at least look at their embodied carbon and maybe do an LCA. And then sort of the idea is to move towards reductions in like a phased in approach after project teams get a little bit more comfortable. So that has been ongoing and I think is going to end up with some great results. And obviously, as soon as the city of Boston adopts anything around embodied carbon, the awareness, you know, is going to really, you know, go out from there into all the other municipalities and project teams. So it's been exciting.
Awesome, thank you.
I think this touches on shared language, perhaps, because in that tag team, we've been looking to other cities and how they've been tackling it, particularly Vancouver. And so I think we're sort of striving to adopt common strategies and maybe common robust goals, incentives, and there's an effort to define what that means and how do we know we're doing good. So I think just sort of in a broader picture, it's really exciting to see this emerging.
I'll also note that the notes from today will include the link to the City of Boston site where John Delzell's posting all of the meeting minutes and meeting recordings. And from the conversation yesterday, Michelle, there was also Nicole St. Clair Knobloch also presented some information about the work that she's doing with the forestry organizations, as well as the state and the city, to look at supply chain and be able to address the common, what we might call a misperception that we're running out of wood supply and we shouldn't be using heavy timber and it's all bad to do that. When instead there's an overabundance and there's a benefit to incentivizing it over a time period. So that once that recording is posted, I would definitely recommend checking it out for the information that Michelle described, plus Nicole's presentation, so that you've got that data on hand.
Actually, Julie, that reminds me to say that all of the recordings from all of those meetings are available on the city's website on the Net Zero Zoning webpage, and all the presentations are there as a resource for anybody who wants to listen in. And if you don't mind, that reminded me of something else that I think we had wanted to bring up. The idea of, Mass Timber keeps coming up with the City of Boston, and they have some ideas about how they can start to promote it and incentivize it. And one of the things that we keep coming back to is the idea of a design competition, mass timber, and maybe beyond, like all biogenic material design competition, to start getting people excited about getting more mass timber in Boston and Massachusetts. And the city, it's not really the right venue for the city to host it. But so we've been brainstorming about who else might be a great sponsor of a design competition, Mass CEC perhaps, or somebody else. So if anyone has thoughts about how we could maybe start thinking about that and getting that rolling, I think it would be a really great idea to start boosting awareness, and then understanding, like Julie was saying, some of the misconceptions about mass timber, and promote it in our region.
Is the BSA interested in a design competition?
I think we've been engaged in conversations with John, but I haven't been engaged with them directly.
Okay.
Oh, Andrea, hi.
Hi. We had some conversations, I don't know, it was before COVID, so it was a while ago at this point, with the city about having a decarbonization design competition. And there was some vague interest, but it didn't seem like there wasn't a huge push. And so I think there was, we could revisit it if it changes, but.
Yeah, I think that maybe more recently, and in regard to mass timber specifically, I think Billy and Jenny have been having some exploratory conversations with John. So I'm not sure where it's at, but they're talking at least.
That's good.
Well, I wonder if, Andrea, does the BSA have like clear connections to most of the universities in the area?
Yeah, there's a representative from each of the universities that sits on the board.
Cool. It seems like it could be, rather than it just being a sort of professional design competition, it could push down into that community as well.
For sure.
Cool.
And if it's a mass timber focused one, it's a good opportunity to work with our structural engineering friends.
Yep. Rochelle, did you want to touch on the other discussion as well?
Yeah, this is super early phase, but we have initiated some ideas with Nicole about some programming event about forestry and mass timber, shooting for some time in the fall. And the idea is to sort of share information to the broader design community about what forestry practice looks like, particularly in the Northeast, where it's robust, and sort of address, either what we don't know or what we may be misinformed about in terms of harvesting and caring for our forests and all the threads that come with it, all the thoughts and questions that come along with it, and why mass timber is a great strategy for embodied carbon. So, we've just begun talking about it, but hopefully we'll be developing some sort of programming, and maybe this gets tied into the competition. Just throwing these ideas out there. Maybe there's sort of a mass timber type of theme that happens in the fall. So yeah, that's what I'd like to share. Keep your ears out. More news later. Yeah. Yes, Jim.
There are some pretty serious wood experts, which I know that Nicole, that's her name. Yeah, thank you. I got Michelle stuck in my head. See, Michelle? That Nicole has interacted with, but there are, have been working on this for 50 years.
Yep.
And have a lot of expertise.
Yep.
Any other thoughts from all of the June events? Things that went well, other key themes that we should put on this list to track, lessons learned, things to keep in mind for the next time we do it.
I'll just say that the public procurement session was probably the most interesting thing that came out of that, from my perspective, was Chris Weeks's, from the city of Cambridge, sort of realization that, ooh, this needs to be a thing, and then discovering that there's stuff going on in Cambridge, and it's like all of a sudden the perspective has changed up from the city, and that was impressive.
And I think that also ties into the Built Environment Plus event, the municipal event. I mean, they had awesome turnout. And I know that Meredith and others are sort of thinking about, like, how do you build on this momentum? Because municipalities are now, oh, wait, there's this thing called embodied carbon. It's important we're still wrestling with operational carbon, but, I think certainly this community, and Julie, I know you and Stephen and others are really well connected to that effort with Meredith, but I think it's important to, again, to communicate back to that group, to give them first steps or connections to resources, even if we don't have answers, if we're just communicating monthly with the people that have participated to say, hey, this is a fantastic article on timber, or we've just put together we've got this resource folder at BSA for everyone to peruse. Here's the link. I think those frequent, nobody likes more email, right? But I do think that judicious use of, maybe a monthly update on embodied carbon, and maybe it could be a collaboration between Built Environment and BSA, merits some consideration, because I know we're thinking about next spring for following up on these. I just feel like we need to keep people connected and give them potential next steps to work on. And I say that without raising my hand to help. I'm sorry, but I do think it's an important aspect of the networking that we're trying to do.
I agree. Is there a difference? So and I'm just thinking out loud, so bear with me, but we have this session every other month, which is arguably a session of mostly experts. Is it reasonable to consider adding something into that cadence where it's more about inviting new people in and sharing it, spending more time sharing and less time talking about working groups and the things that we're doing? Or is it just more about the events and holding more events and having opportunities for people to connect and hear about the issue and understand the issue and continue to spread awareness?
I really think it's, I mean, my opinion, it's about allowing people to network and ask questions and to engage where they're at. And so maybe that every other month format could be used for, you know, if residential decides to create a working group, well, you know, they could create an opportunity so that from 8 to 9 some morning, and maybe it could be, you know, on a calendar so that others could, who haven't participated yet, could see what's up and coming. I don't know what's best in this day and age. My sense in talking to some people is, as people transition back to the office, and many are, that there's this overload going on, and I don't know when that's going to stop. But yeah, I think that's a potential, Julie, is to use that month to maybe have other groups with specific focuses meet. And again, municipality, that was the best attended, the Built Environment Plus event was best attended event of all of the ones we ran, which is not to say that it wins as a topic, but it's just to say, let's not lose those participants and their interest, and let's figure out how to build on that. So,
Well, I'll chime in and say the working groups, I think the title came about because of initiatives and project ideas or goals that people, individuals had highlighted maybe last year or the year before and are working towards. But I think that doesn't have to be the case with, you know, people with like-minded interest in typology or questions that they have. They could, you know, I know the reuse working groups meets regularly to do what they do, for example. Other groups meet when there's need, when there's something to do. So, you know, for the residential, I'm just suggesting that it doesn't have to be a working group with a project or a goal. They can come and connect and ask questions and have sort of, you know, an open forum, you know, monthly, once every other month. So I think there's a lot of flexibility in how these groups within the larger CLF Boston umbrella happen and what they do together.
I would just add that I think, Lisa, to your point, I think there is a lot of great value in that, and not every, you know, there's a lot that we can learn from our peers, and our group with reuse has been successful by just kind of hosting monthly guest speakers who are talking about different aspects of, you know, the reuse market and different typologies or different ways that they intersect with that work. And I think that we, as you know, the larger CLF group, don't necessarily need to put so much pressure on kind of planning these once annual educational series, when there's the possibility for people to get just as much, if not more, value out of just having a regular cadence of, you know, an opportunity to learn from their peers. So I'm definitely in support of that. And I think that if we kind of were to throw out a calendar, like maybe we could just start by each of the working groups kind of taking a month every other month, or like we could shift our months to be, you know, to kind of host that month. But then moving forward, you know, we could get input from the market on like, what do people want to learn about embodied carbon? Because I agree that, you know, for folks who are just being introduced to the conversation, it would be helpful for them to kind of have an entry point that's easily accessible, and an opportunity to kind of pick the brains of the folks who really are experts in the field.
Awesome. Rochelle,
I
should
wonder if
we?
there's an opportunity
Good.
to take advantage of a lot of the programming that the other hubs are putting on. It's like it's proliferating so quickly. It's really overwhelming, actually. But there's so many wonderful events, and it seems like it's a, you know, good networking and connection opportunity, but also a good way to just economize on all of the good work that's happening nationally.
That's a great idea. I mean, I feel like we do have the CLF National and can maybe foster stronger relationship with the national as a way to like understand what's going on across the country and other metropolitan areas. Lori, that's a good point.
And I know there's the hubs meet under the umbrella, like through CLF National, but I also know that they operate fairly autonomously. So I don't know if like there's a way to strengthen those hub to hub connections that it doesn't rely so much on CLF, on, you know, the Seattle CLF.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think what I feel like I'm hearing are all these initiatives happening across the country. I think DC is starting their CLF hub, or it's maybe off the ground now, and having these conversations across regions, working off of, you know, different expertise going on across the region. There's so much opportunity there, Lori. I like that.
Something that the reuse group is finding, and we can get into this when we get into our slide, is that there's a lot of efforts that are, I don't want to say duplicated, but they're just kind of popping up everywhere. And I think if we could kind of conglomerate a little bit better, there's a ton of good ideas coming up from different municipalities. We're seeing Austin, we mentioned Vancouver, a lot of stuff in the West Coast and San Francisco. And while each market is kind of a bit different, I think there's a lot of good information we can pull and kind of change our own best practices. So I don't know how we do it, but I think more kind of integration and resource sharing, I think, is only a good thing, especially when it comes to really kind of fundamentally shifting the market, like I think we're all hoping to do.
Michael, do you want me to jump to your slide? Is that?
Sure. Yeah. That's a good segue. Should be 26. There we go. Hi, everyone. Laurel just spoke. I'm Michael Orbank with Common Builders. We're the reuse working group. We have been doing the monthly kind of guest speakers, and that really goes to the fact that, as I just mentioned, there's a lot of kind of splintered efforts across the country, really good ideas coming up from everywhere. And Laurel and I are really hoping, actually, with our kind of deliverable for the year, this reuse roadmap that we're going to start building out, to really just kind of start conglomerating it, see what everyone else is doing and what makes the most amount of sense for kind of our local area for policy, different kind of guidelines for the AC industry, and then kind of municipal successes that we're seeing. So we've had Boston Building Resources talk about what we can do in Boston. We've had Shot Design from Indianapolis, who kind of started their own reuse market kind of out of necessity. We have had a lot of information from our deconstruction hackathon in April. This upcoming meeting, which I think is next week, wow, time flies, will be Eden Bruckman from San Francisco Department of the Environment, who on the West Coast, as I said, they're really starting to build out this very developed reuse market. They seem to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of us, which is great because we can learn from their successes and lessons learned. So if anyone wants to join, we want anyone and everyone to be available for this, because at this point, we're still kind of just taking in as much information as possible, because what we're seeing and we're hearing from either the speakers or the people who are attending these meetings is that this is something we all really need. This kind of circular economy, companies and this reuse market. Coming from the construction side, there's a ton of waste going out that really can be reused. So we just want to get as many guest speakers, really figure out what the best practices are, and start defining this roadmap. And I imagine in the next coming months, we'll need help from everyone here to kind of give their input and what makes the most amount of sense. But we're actually really excited to kind of keep getting different efforts and different, like I said, best practices. Laurel, anything?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah. So like I said, if anyone wants to join, we just have a monthly meeting. They're mostly guest speakers, just to kind of educate people. We have some members of the Mass DEP and the Boston Environment Department, I think it's called. Susan Casino's been working with us a bit. So like I said, in the next month or 2, we'll really start building out this roadmap. I don't know how long it's going to be just because there's so much information. We'll try to keep it short, but we're hoping to kind of deliver by the end of the year something that really anyone looking for reuse can look into and find a guide or some direction and resources into either starting a market here, contributing to the small scale market that is already developed, or really just incorporating into their own design practices.
Yeah, and I guess the only thing I would add on that is that because we do have quite a wide range of demographics, I suppose, of attendees for our group, like we have people from the owner, contractor, designer, municipality side. So our hope with this roadmap, so to speak, is that it can kind of be applicable to really anyone in any stakeholder seat. So depending on where you're coming from, how you want to introduce reuse into your work or into your projects, there'll be relevant information for you to pull from that.
Awesome. And in terms of the discussion meetings that you guys are having, are those something that we could send out, Rochelle, to the whole group?
Sure.
Yeah, we have a pretty robust folder that we have like within the CLF Google Drive folder, and we have all of our meeting recordings there. So it was really good. So our plan was to have a guest speaker for kind of the first half of the meetings, and then we'd spend the second half of the meetings kind of game planning and working actively on our roadmap. But the guest speakers that we've had have been quite engaging. There've been a lot of questions, so we haven't wanted to like cut that short. So I definitely recommend, if people have a chance, to check out the one with Shot Design and Pam Francis. She was really inspiring, kind of just saying like, just get started, just do it. So that meeting from last month was great, and all that information is in our Google Drive folder.
And Mike and Laurel, feel free to use the Google group to share information to the broader group, any announcements and some of these links.
Sure.
And Rochelle, when you send the email out to the whole group, do they get a link to this presentation, or do we copy paste the meeting notes on slide 27 in the body of the email?
I believe I usually drop it in as an attachment, the presentation.
Cool.
So what you see here, what the shared screen is what you're going to get today. And that within it is a link. There's a link to the drive. If someone here happens to not have access to the drive for, permission reasons, just let me know and I'll fix that.
Would it make sense, Rochelle and Julie, to try to, I don't know if this will work because all the working groups are kind of scheduling on their own schedules, but to try to send an email with all of the working group upcoming meetings to the whole group, so that people that aren't necessarily in the working groups now could join periodically. And again, I realize that that's could be challenging, but just sort of the way that the BSA sends out the.
Yeah, there is a BSA newsletter, which we've just been relying on, but we can be, redundant that way. I think it'll be helpful to have a CLF dispatch. We'll rely on you all who are leading these groups to let me and Julie know what your dates are. We can put together a list and just send out a simple email. I don't know. I don't think it makes sense to clutter your calendars with all the working groups if you're not interested in that. But if you read the email and spot a topic that you want to attend, that we'll figure out the logistics, I guess, what's efficient, what makes sense, what you can opt in.
Yeah, that makes sense. We had also asked Caitlin previously if the BSA can have the working group meetings on the calendar without it being behind a paywall. I don't know if it's worth doing that for all of the working groups, or if it's better to keep it more informal.
Or maybe on the hub landing page, like maybe
Yeah.
there's a link where you can register for, the reuse group, or,
Right.
for example, meeting every fourth Thursday. Yeah. So yeah, a logistical consideration we'll need to solve, but the need is there.
Super. And Caitlin, we'll be able to get a a copy of the Zoom chat from you, right?
Yes.
From today. Great.
Do you, just out of a quick question, should we be, so a lot of words. I'm looking, Laurel and I have just been having these meetings just based off a Zoom invite from my Commodore email. In the future, would we want to do something based off of like a CLF hub, sending all these out and us being kind of granted host permissions?
Yeah, sure.
Kind of as it evolves?
Sure. We're diving into the weeds a bit on this sort of stuff, but I did start a Gmail email account for the CLF Boston Hub, and I can share the I can share the access to it. And so information from on high, comes from clf.boston@gmail.com rather than, Michael or Rochelle. That makes sense too. So I'm happy to share that information with you, follow up with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll also ensure continuity, as people people leading efforts transition away and someone else takes over, the consistency of just one email makes a lot of sense. So, okay. Folks, it's 9:01. We do reserve, 90 minutes, but respect that people are busy and have their work days to get to. If we want to continue the conversation, any other points that we want to discuss, there's space to do that. But also, if you need to move on with your day, understand that as well. So feel free to hop off.
I'm in the hop off group today. Michelle, I'll leave you to close it out. Thanks everyone for your time, for all the comments. For those of you who are heading up groups, please take note of folks in the chat who are putting their hands up.
Yep.
And we'll try our best to make sure those land in the notes that we'll send out afterward as well.
Thanks, Julie.
Now that it's mostly people who are better at this, so the reuse group, obviously we had said we're looking to make this roadmap. Is there like a service that obviously the CLF or maybe the BSA, because Laurel and I are really good at like kind of spring discussion, writing things down, but like very bad at design and graphics and stuff like that, believe it or not. So is there like a resource that we could use for this group to make everything look prettier? I know it sounds really weird, but
Caitlin, like I would love some help too, just with the CLF Boston Hub landing page.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Michelle, please.
I was just going to say, as we've been talking about sort of an email and this stuff, I'm sort of wondering if there's any mechanism that we can find to get like a CLF Boston intern. And just off the top of my head, I know that Mass CEC, for example, provides interns for free and pays them. And I just don't know if you have to be like what sort of organization you have to be to tap into that. But it seems like we could probably keep someone busy with communications, maybe a newsletter and kind of all that stuff. But because it's clear that we shouldn't put it on you or anyone else. Yeah. So I don't know if maybe that's the first place we ask and then think about how we could potentially get an intern to.
We may have missed the window for the Mass EC internship.
Yeah, it's like twice a year, I think, right?
Yeah. So I think the next one's later in the fall or winter.
I'm happy to help with that. I love graphic design and I would love to help in any way I can.
That would be awesome. Let's follow up over email and maybe have Michael and Caitlin loop you guys in, maybe have a conversation about this. That would really be helpful.
I'm happy to do that. I think it would be great to kind of have something that ties everything together.
Yeah.
Yeah, super excited.
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. I don't know that very few people on BSA staff are actually designers, so we struggle with the same thing. Michael and Rochelle and all. I think Lisa Goodwin Robbins' notes in the chat are spot on, right? Like you hope that there's someone in the group that has the skill. But maybe this is a call so that it all doesn't fall to Olivia potentially. Maybe this is also a call we can put out to the full group saying, hey, we're looking for graphic support on a few resources. And just like as the BSA staff person, I have to be kind of a no fun Nick and just say that like, we just want to be mindful of kind of the BSA identity and the CLF identity, which I know poses like further challenges.
Yeah, I have two thoughts. One is maybe what Olivia can do is sort of set up a framework, or the overall like concept and way that things tie together. And then maybe by the time we can acquire an intern, aspirationally, then she can free up. She doesn't have to spend so much time putting it together that this person can administer the website and the social media, whatever it is. And the other thought, Caitlin, is I have a pretty clear understanding of what the BSA, just with the conversation we had with Susan about using the BSA's presence. We have not had that conversation with CLF. And so I wonder if we should do that, just sort of understand what kind of presence they should have on these websites and in these dispatches. And
yeah, and that's a conversation that like ultimately probably should happen with Susan. I think I've had it a little bit, and CLF tends to be pretty flexible, but I think that's a good idea just to make sure we're operating in the way that we should be.
quite frankly, I took their logo and put Boston at the bottom.
Yes, let me make sure. I have branded materials from CLF Boston. I didn't use them for like EC 101, for example, because I wanted the BSA identity selfishly to reign supreme there. But I can make sure that the CLF kind of style guide and files.
Yeah, it would be good if it was legitimate.
Yeah, sorry about that.
We like drop that in one of the shared Google folders just to kind of have a spot for everything.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought it was in there. So I'll do that today.
Oh, maybe it is. I don't know. But.
No, it's probably not. If
Okay.
Rochelle hasn't seen it, it's not.
So go ahead.
I don't mean to monopolize just talking a bunch, but something that came up, actually, I see Stephen Brooks on the call. When I was reaching out to him to start my position at Commodore, he had mentioned that there's a lot of kind of grad students and people looking for grad degrees and beyond that at local universities who are ready, willing, and able to help a lot with a lot of these kind of projects. Something that Laurel and I were looking into is possibly reaching out to maybe like Harvard School of Sustainability or people really looking to find something and saying, hey, listen, this is an opportunity. Because we both have, we all have jobs other than this for the most part. And we just don't have the time. We have the ideas, we have the connections. So is it kosher, I guess, to reach out to these kind of resources and find kind of grad students or PhD candidates who really want to dive into this and can help with the research for this roadmap? We have all these fantastical ideas and it just keeps growing and growing. And we really want to do all of this, but we don't want to spend 40 hours a week on top of what we currently do to do that. Is that something that you guys are okay with or would allow or kind of thing? Is that like against the rules?
Question is maybe directed to me. And I think it's a little unclear because I think this group is kind of different in a way than any other group we've had operating as a knowledge community. I know that there are going to be some like structural organizational shifts at the BSA just as people leave and new people come in. And I know that the BSA is becoming increasingly committed to environmental work. There's been talk of an environmental fellow, which may be doing kind of more substantial work than you might be asking about, Michael. But I think I think it's worth exploring. I think it would just need to be kind of done in tandem, in conversation with someone on the BSA staff. And we can explore it together, because we definitely don't want to keep passionate, smart folks out of contributing to this. So sorry, that's a very wishy-washy answer, but
No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And we're still in the process of kind of reaching out in the first part to like, hey, listen, here's 3 or 4 professors that I found that kind of either specialize this or want to help with this. Do you have any students? Do you have any research that really goes towards this? Because like I said, I think we're all trying to do it, but we know that the industry can be this next step. It's just getting there is a bit difficult, I guess. So we're just trying to utilize as many resources as we can to make sure that we can move the Boston area and Mass at large forward.
Yeah. And it's I shouldn't say, maybe I'm making it more complicated, right? Because you all are here in a volunteer capacity. I am being sensitive to like that kind of unpaid intern role. So yeah, I think it would be a conversation kind of defining the role and the terms, and then determining if that's like volunteer or intern, which seems like there's a very blurry line between that as I see all of your faces and I know the work you've done.
Well, another blurry line that I'll put forward, but I don't know, is if there are interns at offices that are members here, and if they could devote some time to our efforts, which tie into what the firm is doing in their position as leaders, expert leaders in CLF work.
Yeah, that's funny, Rochelle. I was just going to say the same thing. That we have a couple of interns who would love to get involved in this stuff, and they're being paid by us. And so it sort of takes care of the question of, well, we can't really do unpaid interns, which we don't do. Just in listening to this conversation, it's like, oh yeah, there are going to be a couple people I invite to this process who can jump in and put some time in.
That would be great.
Yeah, perfect.
Maybe this conversation we'll have with, Olivia at the helm here. We can circle back with you, Jim, and connect. Okay, that would be awesome.
Just quickly to go back to the conversation we were having about how to sort of put our Boston stuff together and distribute it. I went to the CLF national page where they have all the regional hubs, and actually Boston is the only one out of like 20 that even has a website, and it's the BSA website. Everybody else, it looks like, has a LinkedIn group, and that's where they are distributing. So I clicked on the Portland LinkedIn group, and that's where they're sort of posting all their events and working groups and stuff. And I know people are sort of, I don't know about LinkedIn, some people use it a lot, some people don't, but it would certainly be a probably faster, easier way to start disseminating, so people could join the LinkedIn group and then just get those notifications. So it's interesting that nobody else has a website.
We're kind of old school here, I think.
And you live like within an organization that has a website. A lot of these groups are kind of like not attached to anyone and just very grassroots. So, but I think LinkedIn, I think that has been very successful for other hubs, Michelle, and I think a number of BSA knowledge communities use them as well. So I have some notes to follow up with Susan on, and I'll add to that, setting up a CLF Boston LinkedIn page.
Thanks, Caitlin. That sounds like a great approach, at least in this first step to start disseminating our information.
Yeah, thanks for suggesting.
Are we going to start meeting again in person ever, out of curiosity?
That's a good question.
Someone asked during the last reuse group, and I was like, I would love to, but I don't know the logistics of that. I'm not going to invite them to my office, and if the BSA isn't kind of inviting or setting things up, I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, I think the next one will continue to be remote.
For those of us who don't live downtown, being able to attend all these meetings virtually means I can attend way more meetings than I did before the pandemic. I know that sounds silly. I would love to see you all in person again sometime.
Maybe we can have like a social.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like a green build meetup, maybe?
Where is Greenbelt this year?
San Diego.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I would concur with Lisa that while it is lovely to get together with everybody, it sure is a lot easier to be able to do these remotely. So
I'll say it's challenging enough to get to work with commute and kid drop off, and to fit in a second commute between a meeting and the office is a complication. So
yeah. All right. I am going to drop off. Lovely to see everybody.
thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, everyone. If
Jen.
anyone else wants the reuse group, I've been just adding like mad. Just let me know. Michelle, you should have gotten it, and a couple other people. So anyone else, let me know. And then Rochelle, if you can, maybe we'll transition the reuse group from kind of my email to that larger email.
Sure.
And I think that would be a little better towards consistency. I think it makes a bit more sense. So, okay, bye everyone.
All right, I'm gonna go too. It's been lovely chatting. Have a good day,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
I feel like we're at a closing point. Thanks for sticking around, everyone.
Great. Nice to see you all.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.